The Aussie property market soared 60% in a decade, and the future looks bright. Hi, and welcome to Property NXT Talks, where we, your hosts Cilla and Luke, share banter on life and Aussie real estate investing specifically for expats. As Aussie expats in Singapore, passionate about property and experienced in investing from overseas, we'll share our insights on growing Australian markets, residential and commercial property investment strategies, lending options, and more. Ready to talk property the Aussie way? Let's go. Hello, welcome to Property NXT Talks. Luke and Cilla are back.
Hey Cilla, good to be here.
Luke, good to be here too. Good to be here too. I'm very happy. We've just settled on our final lot in our property in Wallen in Melbourne. So we literally a few weeks ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, had the initial conversations, and it's just this week come in, and we'll settle in a few weeks, and it'll be dusting the hands off of a property that we bought before COVID.
Well, you're sort of hiding the fact you're a big time property developer.
I love that I pretend to claim that I am, but quickly called Jamie and was like, "Can I just run through? This has been our Melbourne property journey. We've done our families put in to buy land, build property, and sell it in Melbourne since 2012 probably. Yep. So it's been just turning over, and most of it has been buying land, subdividing, building 2 townhouses and selling.
Yep.
We went a bit more high risk in 2019 where we bought a bigger property and we subdivided it into 11 lots and went through 11 townhouse designs, trying to maximize what you could. And there was a few iterations before it got DA approved, and then COVID hit, and the property market in Melbourne absolutely tanked. No one wanted to buy. So while we were still getting all the sort of features put into the lots.
By features, you mean the services?
Yep. Plumbing, electrics, all of that. So that was going on throughout COVID and a little bit after. But, then when they were finished and it was time to start selling, there was just no buyers. And it has been till now that we've just been able to sell the final lot.
Yeah, it's a common story down there.
Yeah, I mean, it was... Given the success we'd had with the previous ones, it was a bit of a no-brainer when we saw this property come up, this lot come up, like ready to be subdivided. But no one can predict COVID. That was a big surprise for a lot of us. But yeah, it's been a journey ever since with what's going on in Melbourne, which I think is really topical for today.
It's all about Melbourne, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's really about why would or wouldn't you invest in Melbourne. I think there's reasons to and reasons not to, and you've been talking about it in a few series lately, and I think it's been on your mind, and the reason for that is...
We get asked a lot of questions about Melbourne, because Melbourne's it's the biggest city in terms of population now in Australia, and it's got a history of really great real estate behind it as well, and I think there's a lot of lag in terms of people's knowledge of what's happened in Melbourne for the last 5 odd years, and sad, I'll leave that statement out there to linger, what has happened in Melbourne, and we can dive into that. So basically the questions I get asked are, is Melbourne a good place to invest, quite regularly?
Yeah, because we ran an event, because in our events we want to make sure we do focus on specific areas or regions and cities, and we did Southeast Queensland end of last year, but we found we had a lot of customers coming up and really explicitly asking about Melbourne as well, and at that stage it was a bit like, what do you want to know about it? Because there's a lot of ways you can look at Melbourne. And
the reasons to invest in South East Queensland are fairly positive. Like you're really digging deep to find negatives, whereas it's a total opposite in Victoria, in Melbourne. So I just thought, right, I've been asked enough about it, so I started doing some LinkedIn posts around why you should or shouldn't buy in Melbourne. We got to the point of why you should, or if you had to, I guess I should say. And it's all about unpacking predominantly what the Victorian state government's done down there to the market. And COVID's a major side of it, but it's a long time ago now, COVID. And the remnants of what has happened down there is ongoing. And it's just, when I've gone into even more detail, there's more stuff about it that I didn't even know, and which would make me a little bit nervous. And, so why to invest down there versus why not? I think the major factor for me is, yes, you can invest in Melbourne, but I would only invest in there, and we'll get to this why you would only and who should at the end of the podcast.
It's
Is a teaser? Is that a teaser?
I think we're already in. But I think it's interesting that you said what makes me nervous, because what I see in, maybe the marketing and things I hear about reasons to buy in Melbourne, it can come across as like a no-brainer. Like Melbourne is the bee's knees of places to invest. And I guess, that's marketing, but it's interesting hearing from your perspective as a professional in the industry and, what I see in terms of a consumer or a potential buyer.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of two different lenses.
We're getting flooded at the moment with stuff available in Melbourne. And, that's always a cautious thing for me. But let's dive into it, shall we?
Yeah, go for it.
So for me, Melbourne, we'll talk about probably the cons and then look at the pros at the back end. And, the biggest challenge with the Victorian market, and I'm going to put my glasses on. I shouldn't read off notes, but there's a few here.
When there's some statistics involved,
there's a few here you kind of have
right.
to. So Melbourne, 5 years ago, Melbourne was the second most expensive city in Australia behind Sydney. And so 5 years ago, Melbourne was 22% cheaper than Sydney, 35% more expensive than Brisbane, 51% more expensive than Adelaide, and 56% more expensive than Perth. Now, as of today, the current median dwelling value in Melbourne is 770,000. Now, dwelling is apartments and houses together combined. So for those of you who will Google that stat. But as of today, the values, Melbourne is, in terms of where we currently sit, is 5.7% cheaper than Perth. So it's gone from being 56% more expensive to now being 5.7% cheaper, 5.7% cheaper than Adelaide, 13.6% cheaper than Brisbane, and 35% cheaper than Sydney. So it's now the fifth most expensive city in Australia.
Is that good or bad, though, as an investor?
So then the argument is it good or is it bad? And then that's how you've got to unpack it further, because the overarching title is it's cheap. Now, if something's cheap, is it going to come back up in value? And this is just what individuals need to make this assessment on their own. So the great challenge with when you unpack the Melbourne real estate market is what has the Victorian state government done, and how much can a government affect the real estate values? And so on a positive, and you've brought this up to me, is the stamp duty thing.
Yeah, because that's what I just saw recently. It's like stamp duty in Melbourne reduced, or Victoria reduced, stamp duty reduced, and that's a pretty compelling reason.
So I think reason to do it. So the exact numbers, they've just extended it for another 12 months. The challenge with no stamp duty is it's a brilliant piece of marketing, right? So you get in, and it's a big saving for buyers. But the overall challenge is Victoria's got an enormous debt. I think it's coming up to $200 billion, something along those lines. And so they're trying to get out of debt predominantly by taxing property investors. So you can get into a property, and if no one tells you no one tells you about the taxes that are coming your way, when you talk to your accountant year one, you think, hang on, I've got a property in Sydney or Brisbane or Perth or Adelaide, and it's costing me X amount of dollars per year to run from a tax point of view. All of a sudden, it's 5 times more expensive in Victoria to have it. And so annually...
5 times?
Well, it's different for every property in terms of values, but there are so many taxes now in Melbourne on property owners that it's scary. And some of the ones that... The most obvious one is land tax, which people don't really understand. But the land tax is the amount of tax that they'll tax you on the actual property, the land value. So if you own a house, you instantly will buy a house at a land value and a build value. Generally speaking, let's just use it at, say, 600 grand. So 300 grand value of land, 300 value to build. So you've all of a sudden got a value of $300,000 of land tax. I'm not an accountant, by the way. But land tax kicks in at 50,000 in Victoria, whereas in places like Queensland, it's over 600,000. So you instantly have a land tax bill year one. That's an added cost you didn't know about. You've then got this new one that's come out that I find the most shocking one is it's the new rental standards and energy efficiency bill, which is for anyone who owns an existing property or is looking to buy an existing property investment. The Victorian government's basically saying you have to retrofit your house or your apartment to bring on these energy efficiency standards, which sounds amazing for tenants. But I mean, there's things they want you to do, like 3-star cooling rating in the main living area. I don't even know how you would do that in your main living area. You've got to put in insulation.
You'd have to pay someone to
you
come
have
in
to pay,
and
but then how would anyone actually know whether it's
changes.
3-star rated? You've got to put in 4-star rated shower heads. Anyway,
I do have people that come in and do proper assessments.
But can you imagine a disgruntled tenant in Victoria getting someone to reassess it?
I know, yeah. Or even a landlord, right? Or you're a new owner and all of a sudden you have to make all these changes that you didn't expect.
So the Victorian government has said that that's going to cost about $6,000, just short of $6,000 to retrofit any existing property investment. And that's in law. That has to be done by October 30. Now, that's the Victorian government's numbers. So the industry bodies have gone out and done their own assessment. Theirs is between 12 and 20,000. So if you're a property owner, property investor sitting there, you've got an existing property, you're already paying higher land tax, you're paying all these other things. Now all of a sudden you've got to retrofit your property and make sure it's got all these standards hit, and you've got to front up another $10 to $20. There's reasons to want to buy property become a lot less. Yeah. It's a bit burdensome to want to buy them down there. So then it's a choice of, okay, it's cheap, but does cheap outweigh all of the other issues? And to a degree it might at some point, because there will be capital growth in Melbourne. So then I went on this whole search of what to buy. And so you buy an apartment, you buy a house, you buy a townhouse. And, you've got the experience yourself with the townhouses and the houses you've bought. And in reality, you did well out of them, didn't you, except for the last one?
Yeah.
So you were on the right path with houses. Now, Melbourne's got a history of oversupply in the apartment side of things. So there's all of the inner city apartments. And then I've spoken to mortgage brokers, and there used to be what's called postcode restrictions on a lot of the apartments in the inner city because there was just too many of them, too many small ones, studios ones. And so I'm a bit nervous about the inner city apartments in Melbourne for our investors. But what we found out in the end was, if you do want to buy in Melbourne, we think buying a house is still a good thing because land's always going to be good.
And it's cheap.
It's cheap. And comparatively to the rest of Australia now, number 5 in the market. Yeah. The other good thing about the Victorian market is that it's got huge immigration. So there are conversations around people leaving Melbourne, but it's got the biggest inflow of people coming into the market. And they're predicted to get to sort of 8-9 million people in the next 10 to 15 years, which is an enormous population for Australia. And so they've got to be housed. And so if you can own land down there and buy it cheaply, you'll actually do okay. So I'm a bit like push and pull, like I want to really advise clients on the right way, but I want them to be fully aware of all the issues going in. Yeah. And so that's what we really wanted to unpack today.
Yeah. And you did say quite briefly there that, there will be capital growth. So you do see the market coming back? Yeah.
There has to be. Like a house and land
there is in general across Australia, right? Like
there's an undersupply, so there should be generally a capital growth. The challenge is that buying in an okay location, getting the right space and the right land, and then there's a market there for it. You don't want to overpay though. So the returns down there still aren't great. So you're looking at a 4% return, generally speaking, on most of your assets. Which, you can get elsewhere.
Is that a combined of rental and
capital? No, that's
just rental yield.
Yeah. So, we talk about it all the time. What's your hat? Are you just a pure property investor, or are you looking for something? There's a reason to want to buy in Melbourne. My overall argument would be, if you want to buy just a property investment, let's us talk, and we can probably point you into a direction where life's going to be a lot simpler, where the market's a bit more positive, the government's a lot more pro investment, they're doing things the right way, and you'll probably make more money. But if you love Melbourne and you want Melbourne, how do we get you into something? Well, we think you get into a house and land. You're going to get in fairly cheaply. Like it's $200,000 cheaper to buy a house and land in Melbourne as it is to Brisbane.
Oh, than Brisbane. Okay.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Like $200,000 difference between Queensland and crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy numbers. And so, if you want that, great, let's get in. You can't not go wrong in my opinion, but you're going to pay a few more extra taxes. But that's where we get you in talking to a really good tax agent, and hopefully you can minimise it as much as you can up here with depreciation and those sort of things. And you avoid the extra taxes for the existing properties. That's the big key one for me. Imagine you owned an old fibro house, in regional Victoria, and it's worth $400,000, $500,000. Yeah, it could cost you 50, 60 grand to retrofit that thing for. I mean, you may
who
as well
knows
sell.
what else you'd find?
You may as well
if you
sell.
had to.
You know, like you'd be in all. It's just not worth having it anymore. So I don't know what they're trying to do down there with the market, but it's very property investments confusing. It's hard, but it should be fun. It's a way to make money. You don't need to necessarily be, you know, an expert in tax law to be able to buy the property.
Yeah.
Which is becoming strange. But I think you can make money. That's the overarching thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a bit of both reasons, why to and why not to, or like if you are, let's be really strategic in what type of property that we want to buy.
That's our big thing, isn't it? We're trying to say to people, know the numbers, know the facts before you go in. And if you're still good with it, let's do it. Let's do it, because there's reasons to buy everywhere, I think. And if you're going to hold it long term, you're going to do well out of it. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Thanks.
No problem.
That's
it's a shorter one today.
It was good to hear about all of your series in one.
Oh, my goodness. I did so much research. But that's what we're here for, right,
Yeah.
is to understand it.
Yeah.
I learned about taxes I never even heard of.
Yeah. But this is the beauty of, I believe, Property Next. It's like all of that research you've done with a really objective lens versus, like, imagine as an expat in your spare time when you're not looking after the kids, not working, not traveling for work, not going on holidays and, you know, socializing.
Well, there's a trust. You're putting a lot of trust
You need to
in people.
research all of this. Like, it's just, it's helpful to just have someone to.
Yeah, you don't want to just say,
Talk
okay,
to.
I just believe everything you're saying.
Yeah.
I would prefer to have some stuff handed to me so I can do some reading at night time.
Yeah.
Might be a bit boring, but you'll get some answers, and then you can be armed with the right decision-making tools. And if that's your one, that's your one. Let's get into it, because we've actually partnered with a fabulous house and land builder down there who's got some of the best reviews I've ever seen. And so you'll get some great products, and we've got choices all around Victoria. But you know, if Victoria's your spot, I want you to understand all of the after taxes,
all the long term, you know,
and the
implications.
Yeah, and their ability to add more.
Yeah.
Which they keep doing.
Hopefully they'll slow down now.
And are you and Jamie going to reinvest again in Victoria? What's the decision?
I think we'll give Victoria a break for now. I mean, we've done four
You've
properties.
done well.
Wouldn't mind exploring the Queensland area, because I just think the infrastructure there, the planned infrastructure roadmap there is
the runway in Queensland is spectacular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So that's that whole piece is just conversations and learning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for listening to Property Next Talks. If you got something out of this, share it with just one person. You'd be doing us a huge favour. Stay tuned and listen to Luke and Cilla talk property. Thanks.
Thank you.
Cool.
Well, let's see how that one sounds.
I think it was okay.
Yeah, we'll just see how it sounds, you know, on the...
like too negative or not
well,
negative?
not whether it's too negative, just whether it's the detail is